And hello and welcome to another episode number 29 of the Infobotts Podcast. I am your host, author Frederick Fishman. Today and every day we are sponsored by me. So for links to all of my books, apparel, and gear, go to Infobotts.com. That's my website, spelled with two T's at the end. Infobotts.com. You can also help us out and show your support by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/Infobotts Podcast. Okay, let's get started. Did you know that when I come up with subject matter for each individual Infobotts podcast episode, I usually think of it as a single, simple proposition. For this episode number 29, I was thinking the other day, why, I don't know, whatever happened to the soft drink 7-Up? Simple, right? Oh, well, wrong, actually. Let's start from square one. 7-Up has 17 different variants still offered, with the original lemon lime flavor introduced on June the 19th, 1929, 2 weeks before the stock market crash and a worldwide depression. A bib label lithiated lemon lime soda, that's what it was called, not 7-Up. The brand rights today are owned by the Keurig Company and Dr. Pepper, known as Keurig Dr. Pepper, in the United States, and 7-Up International around the world. And yes, it is still sold around the world. Why not as popular these days as it has been in the past? Why don't you see it on your shelf? Well, with fierce competition to dominate those shelves and no advertising, it's difficult. When is the last time you saw any type of advertising for 7-Up? A disturbing and interesting fact about 7-Up is that when it was introduced, it contained lithium citrate, a mood-stabilizing drug. That drug was finally removed in 1948. Supposedly the name 7-Up is a result of the fact that 7-Up was bottled in 7-ounce bottles way back then, while Coca-Cola back then, they were bottled in 6-ounce bottles. This is the ownership chain of the brand from its beginnings in the 1920s by originator Charles Grigg, who launched it in St. Louis with his Howdy Corporation. Okay, you ready? Westinghouse bought 7-Up in 1969. Philip Morris bought it in 1978 and split the international division, which was then purchased by PepsiCo and investment firm Hicks and Haas. Never heard of him. In the U.S., 7-Up brand then merged with Dr. Pepper, which was purchased in 1995 by Cadbury Schweppes. You still with me? It was then spun off from Schweppes in 2008 and then purchased by Keurig Green Mountain in 2018 to form Keurig Dr. Pepper. Usually 7-Up is drunk cold with ice and sometimes mixed with Seagram's 7 Crown alcohol for the drink 7 and 7. I'm sure you've heard of that. Ingredients have changed over the years since the creation, dependent on the type of 7-Up you purchase. Many cartoonish mascots were associated with the advertising campaigns of 7-Up over the decades. The last mascot was Fido Dido, used through the 1980s and introduced to the international market in the 2000s. Can you buy it still? Well, it's hard to find, with only 1% of the entire soft drink market buying 7-Up. I asked myself a simple question in the beginning: whatever happened to 7-Up? And I encountered a great deal of research material on this brand. And now I'm exhausted. So now you know. Well, thank you for listening. We hope you will support our efforts to bring you this daily Infobotts podcast, and you can help us out by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/Infobotts Podcast. So join us again for another episode of Infobotts. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.